The NBA season preview rolls on. Today, looking at teams that have a chance to go from worst to first in the association this year. And I should kind of clarify on this one. The original premise for this segment is from the NFL season preview. And the NFL has 8 divisions. So you have 8 opportunities to go from worst to first in the NFL. And so that gets a little bit easier to do that. In the NBA, you only have 4 divisions. And honestly, in the NBA, I think you could ask some pretty advanced basketball fans, hey, who's in what division? Break them down for me. And you would have some trouble doing that, as division wins have meant less and less as the years have kind of gone on in the association. But I do think that there is, at least some importance of that. And so for this particular segment, it is titled Worst to First, but it is the worst 2 to first in your division. If you were in the bottom 2 in your division last year and have a chance to move up, then you qualify for this list. So coming in at number 5, it's the Detroit Pistons. It would take quite a bit for them to jump up in the, Central, I think, division. And yes, like they would have a steep hill to climb and a lot would have to go right, which is why they're at 5, because it does seem almost illogical to assume that it could happen. But let's go through the scenario. What we have to assume with this is that Detroit gets better. And that's one of the things I've talked about, is that I think Cade Cunningham finally is able to take his jump this year. They were able to put him with some really good. That would be an overstatement. But with some actual NBA talent, which seems like a low bar to clear for an NBA team, but is not something he has had at his disposal a whole lot. So I think that there is a chance, and it's one of the things we talked about from the lessons we learned last year, that there is a chance for this young kid to really take that step and help Detroit advance a couple steps beyond what we would think. Then a lot has to go right for them. You don't need to squint too hard to see them being better than Chicago. We can put that one behind us. After that, the rest of the Central is Milwaukee, Indiana, and Cleveland. So, bit of a murderer's row type. And so for Detroit to get that worst to first, again, everything has to go well for them. Milwaukee has to have a bit of a season from hell sort of a thing. And the 3 teams really would. But you can see, like, any of Giannis, Middleton, Lillard get injured, and all 3 of those are realistic scenarios. If we're in January and all of a sudden Brook Lopez is the best player on the floor for the Milwaukee Bucks, like that would suck, but wouldn't be overly like, oh wow, no, all of these prime athletes, how could they? Middleton has had injury problems before. Giannis starting to get a little bit more banged up as the years go on, and Lillard, I don't think Lillard really falls into a worried about getting injured status, but again, getting a little bit older and a lot of wear and tear and whatnot. So you would have to have like a bunch of injuries on this team, but we already saw that can happen. For Indiana, it would kind of have to be everyone's figured us out. Like, they don't defend worth a lick. And the offensive explosion was fun last year, but they could be a bit of a target for, or a bit of a candidate for, well, the league got the tape and had a full offseason get ready for us, and now we can't do half of the shit that we were doing before, and oh no, look at this, now we've just completely fallen off. And then for Cleveland, I think that it would be a bit of an inner turmoil thing, where the Garland and Mitchell situation just is not tenable at all, and Mobley has not taken the steps forward that they needed him to, and it isn't working, to steal the AEW phrase, the conglomeration of talent that they have just doesn't click. And we have seen at times, like there was one injury last year, and all of a sudden Cleveland got a whole lot better. So you would need all of that to happen for the Pistons to make that jump, but I still think that they have the talent to maybe advance that level. Coming in at number 4 on this list, it is the Golden State Warriors. They are in the Pacific Division, and right now, it just kind of looks wide open. And they did finish in the bottom 2 in this division last year, but I think not every team, though. I was going to say, I feel like almost every team in this at least made the play-in. But for the Warriors, yes, there's no Clay, but I don't think you have to squint to see what would happen or what would need to happen for this team to get back to an elite level. Steph Curry stays awesome. Andrew Wiggins, find whatever he has lost over the last couple of years, and Kuminga, Moody, and Pajemski continue the progression of young basketball players. Or they trade all of them and get someone super awesome and they just skyrocket. But I do think that there is an available option for them to be better than the Suns, Kings, Clippers, and Lakers this season. At 3, it's San Antonio. I have been telling you guys that I am all in on the Wemby San Antonio Spurs experience. And that was one of the things I'm worried I'm wrong about in the episode that we did there. But this is a team that I think has the capabilities, given that they put a real point guard with Wemby and given another year of experience, the Olympic scenario with for Wembanyama. And so I think that, again, you can see a very real world where they are better than the Grizzlies, the Pelicans, the Rockets, and the Mavericks. At 2, it's Sacramento. They go out and get DeMar DeRozan, and I love this move for them. They had at times, like, I think DeMar is one of the best, like, half-court mid-range scorers in the NBA in the last, 20 years. There's obviously a couple of guys ahead of him, Okay. Kawhi, for those listening. And, LeBron, very good. Kevin Durant. Those guys. The guys who are just, pure scorer types anyway. But DeMar DeRozan is so good in that, in creating his shots and getting just using his high basketball IQ and obvious offensive gifts as well to get into some very good spots to score the basketball. And so I think that will help this team if things can kind of bog down on them a little bit. But the thing that I also think that it helps is that there are a lot of times where it'd be, okay, it's Sabonis in the bench, and now it's Fox in the bench, and now it's Sabonis and Fox, and it's just, you have very little time where it was the two of them together. And now with DeMar, you can basically have two very good offensive players out there at one time in DeMar, Sabonis, and Fox, and just kind of keep rotating the two, between two of them all game. And that is really difficult to stop from a defensive standpoint. So I think that they have a chance to just be very difficult to play against for 48 minutes and be a very good offensive team. And so again, we went over the Pacific. The division feels wide open with the Suns, Warriors, Kings, Clippers, and the Lakers. And at number 1, now this one, I made this list a bit before and probably could have adjusted it, but we're going down with the ship. Made this before we saw John Morant hobble off the floor twice in a preseason game, but it's the Memphis Grizzlies. If John Morant is healthy, I think they nailed it in the draft with Edey. This is still a really, really talented basketball team when everyone is healthy, and they had a year from hell year last year. If they can keep everyone on the floor, then I think this team, honestly, kind of cruises to a Southwest Division title after a really bad year last year. We've talked up the Spurs, but there's a reason the Spurs are behind Memphis on this list. I think that Memphis at their peak is quite a bit better, actually, than San Antonio. And then you only kind of need Dallas to take a bit of a slip. And this team is right there to win this division. So I think it is wide open for Memphis to go from worst to first.